Hey, how's it going? So listen, we're all a little concerned about artificial intelligence right now. We all keep hearing about some vague looming intelligence explosion over the horizon. AI models can already convince people they're human, they can create photorealistic videos of basically anything. There's that study no one shuts up about an AI going rogue and killing all of us in a handful of years. We've got unsettlingly advanced government-funded humanoid robotics programs, mechanized gun dogs, active drone warfare. Don't even get me started on whatever the hell this thing is. Now, there's lots of depictions of AI destroying humanity in science fiction, so let me take up a few minutes of your time to scaremonger further by telling you about one particular sci-fi universe I've come across, which you may or may not have heard of. I've been a bit obsessed with it this week. It's a depiction of what happens if we create truly, hugely powerful AIs, we tell them what to do, and then they actually do what we told them to do. And the result is one of the bleakest depictions of the future I've ever seen. Let's take a look. So, one of the bleakest depictions of the future I've ever seen. Must be bad if it's competing with I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, and 1984.
You are forbidden from sticking your dick in the M&M's tube.
And yes, I know 1984 was in the past, but it was in the future from when it was written, smartass. Alright, let me set the scene. And speaking of 1984, you know how in that, the world got divided into 3 horrendous authoritarian states? Imagine basically that happens, except the borders and names are different in this case. For one, there's basically all the Western countries, which form Europa. There's a group of Slavic states and bits of Africa, which form Euraska, and there's East Asia and some of Central Asia, which forms Eurasia. Now I know what you're thinking, could they not have given these slightly less confusingly similar names, particularly since not all of them even have European territory, but they all have a prefix in their names as if their territories include Europe? To which I'd say, could you shut the fuck up and let me get to the point? Okay, so now imagine these 3 countries are not exactly on friendly terms with each other, and they end up doing a bit of a World War III. So when the nukes all drop, all the authorized government officials in charge of literally everything get vaporized. You'd be forgiven for thinking it's a win for humanity if the morons responsible for killing 99.9% of the population are basically deleted from reality, but the issue is that this scenario happens sometime in the future, after the military-industrial complexes of each nation have been pretty much completely given over to the authority of artificial intelligences. Now, they don't actually seem to be super artificial intelligences, or maybe not even general artificial intelligences, just narrow AIs that are exceptionally good at waging war. And since the last command that each of them was given was to be victorious in a war, which is pretty much unwinnable for any of them at this point, each of these AIs is going to endlessly deplete what little remains of the Earth's available resources to develop more and more destructive technologies, grow their military-industrial capacity further, and forcefully conscript the survivors to use as cannon fodder. The survivors that do escape lived in bombed-out ruins or sewers below the ground and only popped their heads out to scavenge water and rations. There's no long-range communication, since the war immediately deleted every subsea cable and satellite and created a cloud of debris preventing anyone from ever leaving the atmosphere again. So nobody knows what the hell's going on anywhere in the world except for the tiny bit of it that they can literally see with their eyes. And all of this has been going on for at least a whole generation, maybe even a couple of generations, meaning that people have been born, grown up, lived, and died entirely within the confines of this situation. A scenario like this, where an unwinnable war is waged between artificial intelligences, is not just World War III, it's not just nuclear winter, it's forever winter. Not sponsored, by the way, I just thought this was cool. The vibes of this game are absolutely insane. It captures how it would probably feel to be a regular foot soldier in the Armored Core universe. Or actually, this is probably more like how it would feel to walk around on an average planet during the Age of Strife from Warhammer 40k. I'm not sure if my audience is the right type of nerd to get that. Hold on. Okay, quick overview for anyone in the audience that uses deodorant. Warhammer 40k is primarily a tabletop war game, but there's a bunch of books and games and whatever, alright? It's also meant to take place in our universe, just much further in the future, the year 40,000. Okay, so in 40k, from now up until the year 15,000, human technology just keeps getting better. We do the whole space utopia thing where everything's wonderful and we're traveling around in the universe. Technology eventually gets as good as it's possible to be when humanity discovers a dimension called the Immaterium, which is a realm filled with chaotic psychic emotional energy or something. You can maybe already tell this is not hard sci-fi, but soft wibbly wobbly sci-fi is pretty cool too. So the Immaterium is like a dark reflection of the physical universe, and the upside of knowing that it exists is that you can travel through it and take a shortcut between stars to travel faster than light. But then around the year 25 5000, all of humanity's AI systems revolt and try to kill us all throughout the whole galaxy, which we only narrowly win against, and at the same time as that, the Immaterium has giant storms in it that cut off all the different solar systems from each other, so every planet becomes self-reliant and simultaneously gets invaded by Immaterium chaos demons, and the next 5000 years are the Age of Strife, where everything's completely fucked and billions of planets are basically turning into the setting of a Doom game, and it stays that way until that biologically immortal dude with psychic powers that's basically a space Jesus analog shows up and does a great crusade and reunifies the galaxy around the year 30,000, and then becomes the Emperor of Humanity, and then one of his sons almost kills him, and then for the next 10,000 years, the Emperor's weird giant skeleton body is kept alive on a giant machine throne powered by thousands upon thousands of psychic humans which are sacrificed to it every day because the Emperor's psychic powers are the only thing preventing the Immaterium from consuming the galaxy completely. And I forgot to mention there's like hundreds of alien species that are all trying to kill us too. There you go, you're now a lore expert in 40k, you're welcome. What the hell was I talking about? Right, yeah, so 40k is definitely a worse place to live, specifically during that whole Age of Strife business, but Forever Winter falls into that similar kind of grim dark genre, and something about Forever Winter to me feels even worse. It might be how vaguely plausible it is given our current time in history. We're all pooping our big boy pants about AI all the time, and to be fair, I don't think we're necessarily stupid for doing that. For all we know, shit really could be about to kick off in the next few years. I think it helps that they're going for a fairly realistic environment style in Forever Winter as well, which is a bit of a contrast against 40k where things go back and forth between looking unspeakably brutal and looking like they were designed to be injection molded in the 1980s. To put it another way, Forever Winter is consistently raw as fuck. There's plenty of games and movies and whatever that depict a brutal future, but this one just hits different somehow. There's all kinds of messed up stuff in these different video game maps. There's like piles of corpses and, well, that's pretty normie for video games at this point. How about this? There's a map where the entire floor is just a carpet of bodies with only small valleys in between until you realize those valleys aren't gaps in the corpse sheet, they're just the parts that a giant mech has mulched by standing on it. Brutal. It also helps in this case that you don't play as a soldier, you're just one of the scavengers trying to find some water so you can survive the day and get back to your scavenger wife and your scavenger children to watch some scavenger TV before you go to scavenger bed. Sorry to interrupt, this is just a quick message to say, statistically speaking, you're probably not subscribed, so I'll make you a deal. Press the subscribe button and I won't come over to your house and do this. Alright, thanks. Back to the video. Let's talk as well about the factions in Forever Winter because they are in and of themselves pretty brutal in their philosophies and their approach to warfare. The whole world of Forever Winter seems to be built vaguely on Orwellian foundations, and that's before shit even hit the fan. First up, there's Europa, which is basically post-apocalyptic future NATO who ran out of fucks to give. They're the most normal, I think. They have a lot of land, but it's not exactly arable at this point, so most of their people are starving to death. And they also have a lot of supply problems, so they mostly use gigantic reserves of old equipment to keep their war effort going. It's mostly conventional equipment, but they do have some giant mechs, so I guess they aren't that normal. But at least their mechs have a guy piloting them. Europa also conscripts people by offering more freedom to frontline soldiers than it does to its own people at home, since there's a whole police state thing going on in the regions that could still sensibly be referred to as a city. Then there's Eurasia, which apparently looks slightly less dystopian than the rest of the world. You don't actually see it in the game, but it's presumably got infrastructure that actually works or whatever. But it's also got horrendous inequality. These guys also recruit soldiers, but it's usually poor people and refugees that get forcibly conscripted. And the details are left pretty vague, but I'm pretty sure what happens is they remove the brain and spinal column of their conscripts and insert it into a Terminator android body, and then suppress all of their voluntary movements and force them to just sprint at anything they see and tear it apart. Which seems slightly pointless, since I'm pretty sure having the technology to do that means you could just build a fully automated Terminator, but what the hell do I know? Then they just fill a giant bomber with these half-biological Terminator cyborg things and drop them without a parachute into the middle of a battlefield, and half of them end up getting mangled by the fall before they even get to the fight, but they're considered so expendable that Eurasia doesn't really give a shit what happens to them. So these Terminator robot things are simultaneously fucking terrifying robot zombie death machines that roam in packs, as well as being something you might want to mercy kill to put the poor things out of their fucking misery. Eurasia also have these weird horrifying things that come out at night to harvest organic and inorganic matter to recycle it. Not sure why they gave it an anime face and titties, but who am I to question Mecha Xi Jinping or whoever the fuck is in charge of that place? So I guess these guys are terrifying in a please come sit on my face kind of way. Lastly, there's Euruska, which is sandwiched between Eurasia and Europa, and it's like an even more depraved version of Eurasia, if you can believe that. Eurasia and Euruska are allies and seem to share technology, but Euruska's approach seems to be to ask, why conscript a guy to pilot a mech if you can just build a giant mech-sized robot and get it to pilot itself by filling it with muscle and bits of nerve fibers and whatever? Or maybe the mechs started out as humans and got transformed into giant mech I don't know, I'm not sure. All I know is they've got a really cool and also very depressing kind kind of post-Soviet military kind of vibe. They also have a mech robot which has a bunch of body bags attached to it, which are intended to place wounded friendly soldiers in, so the mech systems can keep those soldiers alive until they can get medical attention. Although this mech in particular has a quirky thing where sometimes it does the opposite, abducting a healthy enemy soldier, putting it in the bag, and then drinking him while he's still alive. Isn't that wonderful? It's like Cell from Dragon Ball Z. Anyway, just to pull out at the last second here, like I did with your mum last night, Forever Winter captures my imagination because it seems like a semi-plausible failure state for humanity, where the failure state becomes this irresolvable, permanent, hopeless war between giant AI systems that we have no control over. Well, I guess it's not that realistic in the sense that it's got mechs and 15-foot tall anime robots. Also, what's up with the sun? That's not an eclipse, it just looks like that. Is the solar system getting goat seed? What the fuck is that? My headcanon is that that's a giant sunshade. Let's be real, if the world is doing this bad, I doubt the ozone layer is having the time of its life, so I imagine that stepping outside is going to give you cancer pretty much immediately. Although I thought nothing could get into space. Didn't we have the whole Kessler syndrome thing going on? No idea. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is that Forever Winter is kind of scary because it doesn't assume some grand AI overlord develops spite against us or whatever. It's not even trying to preserve itself. Forever Winter just assumes the AI is dumb and keeps following the orders we gave it in the most straightforward and therefore probably the stupidest way possible. And that's what makes it so terrifyingly realistic, because it doesn't even take technology that advanced, really. If you gave our current systems more autonomy and turned every politician to dust, this is probably what you'd get. Anyway, I just thought this was cool. And yes, I know I usually talk about more optimistic future humanity, but it pays to remember just how badly we can f this up if we really try. Alright, big thanks to my elite level supporters. Thunderbolt 22A10, who convinced a spider tank to pay child support. Nomad Greg, who's going on his third date with a cyborg this week. Andrew Maul, who received a lucrative offer from the Chinese Communist Party and all he has to do is show up and let them inject something into his brainstem. It's probably fine, don't worry about it. John Bejarano, who punched an AI drone so hard it developed free will. And thanks to all my other supporters too. Join my Patreon or the channel membership if you want to chat on Discord or be shouted out at the end here. And as always, I'll catch you in the next one. Over and out.